HALLOWEEN. HALLOWEEN. Happy Halloween night. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I know it's been a minute since I actually recorded something properly and spoke to the camera, but I promise I have a good reason. So I got sick at the start of October, and I've pretty much been on and off sick since this month started. So from the start of October, I got really sick and I had a fever, and I lost a bunch of weight in the week that I was sick. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely sick. My lecturers were all a bit concerned about me because of my dodgy attendance. But I'm like, calm. Let me tell you, I've had x-rays. I've had tests. I've been back to Birmingham to get tested. And in the little intervals where I was feeling a little bit better, I went to Garage Nation. I also invited one of my friends to Coventry. But those two little tiny social events, plus that law event that I also went to the same time I went to Garage Nation. It was not Garage Nation, it was Pure Garage. Pure Garage I went to. I was tired for days afterwards. I was really sick. My body's been aching. You know how I've been training to do a marathon? Yes, so imagine I walked 5 minutes up the road in Coventry and my body is aching for the next few hours. It was ridiculous. This fever took me out. All of the fitness that I had perfectly curated. Thankfully, I will actually start my fitness journey. I say journey for the marathon. My training for the marathon. I will start my training for the marathon November 1st, which is in less than an hour. November 1st, I will start my training, I promise. Because TCS messaged me and they said, congratulations, they've reminded me that I'm doing the London Marathon again. They said, it's a 6 months until you're going to be doing the marathon. And I was like, and I'm in bed again, sick, unable to speak. So this fever, it took me out for a good week. The fever specifically, but the first symptom I had was when I was out with the postgrads, my voice just went. I was fine, but my voice just went. I just couldn't speak. So I thought it was hilarious. I was carrying on, I was drinking for a bit, but after like an hour or two of my voice not coming back, I had to type on my notepad app and say, guys, I'm leaving. Like, I still have the notes on my phone of when I was communicating with people, which was hilarious. But I was like, guys, my voice has not come back and it's like 2 a.m. I'm just going to go home. Woke up the next day. My back, my neck, my sides, my throat, I was in so much pain. And then after maybe 2 days of this pain, I was suddenly hit with a fever. And I'm telling you, I haven't had a fever that bad since the first time I caught COVID back in 2020. It was bad. It had me in bed, sweating. I lost half a stone in a week because of how sick I was. And yeah, I'm enjoying the post-weight loss, glow up or whatever, and the little signs of being in ketosis, but no, that was not the way. I've been trying to lose weight healthily. And that kind of, like, the lack of fitness I had scared me. So, anyway, I'm back. I am back. I'm doing what I need to do. I had an assignment deadline. I sent that off. Got another one next week, but it is what it is. I'll get that done. So, according to the poll that I had, the video that guys wanted to see from me specifically was a comparison of studying in Japan to studying in England. And yeah, so I studied in Japan at Keio University, which is one of the top universities in Japan. And in England, I'm currently at Warwick. but initially I studied at the University of Birmingham, which is also one of the top universities, but in England. So it's two different top universities from two different countries, both in the G7. But yeah, so they were very different. So I wanted to start this video just to do a comparison of the two universities and say about what I thought about them. So first off, my first impression of KO was that it was much less specialised than University of Birmingham. So KO had its departments in a similar manner to what England had at University of Birmingham, but just based on what you studied, you could not tell what I actually studied. Like, so in America, they have majors and things like that, and I think the Japanese system is based on that. So in the UK, normally you have to study whatever the subject is you're studying. So I studied law. I had to study law. I couldn't really branch out and do other things. I only managed to do Japanese as like a general offer to undergrads to pick up a language and add that into your main degree. But generally speaking, when you choose a subject, you are doing that subject. You can't pick. You might be able to some courses you're very lucky, and like in some courses you can pick like 1 or 2 extra modules to study from another department, but it's very rare. Normally you would only study from the department that you're in. In KO University, I probably only did like 2 modules from a department. So at KO, I only did about 2 modules from the department that I was actually in. Everything else was from different departments. So it meant that even though on paper I am a law student and I am studying law, and my home university made me do 50% law modules, to meet the criteria I needed to pass a year at KO University, I needed to do either 10 or 11 modules based on how many points they were all worth. Normally at Birmingham, you're only doing around 5 subjects at a time. Me being the person that I was, I had Japanese as an additional subject. I also added like optional modules onto my degree. But at KO, I ended up doing around 11 subjects every semester, and only about 2 of them were from the department that I was actually from. So even though I was classed as a law student, because I was international, everything was under the Kokusaibu, so like the international centre. And the international centre tended to do things in English, so you'd pick from the Kokusaibu like what you wanted to study, and there was some law stuff under the Kokusaibu, and then you have philosophy, you had your sports, you had your every other topic. A lot of it was mostly like Japanese history and literature and things like that. You probably get 1 or 2 law, and then because I had to make up 50% law, I'd be looking at the KO law faculty and seeing what they had. I'd also be looking at like anything law adjacent just to pass it off to my home university and say to them, look, 50% of my modules are law or legal related, allow me, because it was a struggle. Like there was not many at undergrad level, because for some reason England is one of the few countries that does undergraduate in law. Other countries tend to leave that for graduate level. So it meant picking your modules Japan had them, but it was still difficult, so it was a lot less specialised at KO for that reason, and it meant that, okay, I had to do a bunch of random stuff, but also I got to do a bunch of random stuff. The Japanese modules were only worth 1 credit each, even though, in my opinion, they were the hardest things you had to do, because you actually had to get like 70% at least on every test just to pass the class. And then it actually mattered how much you paid attention. I felt like at KO it didn't really matter. Like, you get your grades at the end after doing like a group presentation or after doing something, but it's only if the teacher wanted to give you feedback you would get feedback. for 90% of my modules, I got no feedback, I just got the grade. And my grades tended to be very high. So I'm like, thank you, like, you know, you appreciate my work, but you didn't give me no feedback. Like, one of the lecturers who gave me really good feedback, he was an American guy, and he gave me, like, the highest grade he could give me, but he gave me feedback so I could see why I earned that grade. Yeah, that was my second point, and I've already gone into it, haven't I? So my second point was just that, like, you don't get feedback on your grades at KO. They will just give you the grade and be like, you've got an S, which is the top grade. You've got an A. You've got a C. And I'm like, okay, I passed. If I got a C, I got mostly C's on the Japanese modules because, like I said, they were hard. They were hard and they were numeracy based. So it's if you got 50, if you got 60, if you got 70, that's your grade. But because of things like that, it generally meant that the feedback that you got would make you do better so that next time you could do a better essay. But in KO, it's just like you got a B and you're like, why did I get a B? Like, I put my hard-earned effort into this, and it's like just B. Like, there's no feedback, nothing, just a B. And normally that's a couple of months after you've submitted your final assignment. Like, you're done for the term, you know, you're out doing your baito, like, you're out partying or whatever. You'll get your grade and you're like, okay, so 2 months ago I did this. What does that mean? Like, what does it mean? Like, you won't get any explanation or anything. And I think that's most of the courses that I did were like that. I found that the foreign lecturers that I had tended to give feedback. I don't know if that's the typical way in Japanese universities. It was just my experience, so okay. Also, one of the biggest things I found about KO was like the club culture. So I knew about club culture before I went to Japan. I think Japanese club culture was something I looked forward to in England and then didn't get and was disappointed that I didn't get. So, I mean, as I said multiple times on this channel, at undergraduate level, my choice was Muay Thai. I joined Muay Thai a bit later, and I think University of Birmingham is tame compared to, like, a lot of other universities in England. They tend to clamp down on, like, the club vibe. In Japan, I didn't have to do anything like initiations to join the group that I joined. I was part of KBL, the KO Badminton Lovers Group, which apparently has been around for nearly half a century. It's a very well-known group within KO. It's like, we play badminton sometimes. More times we're out drinking. But we play badminton sometimes, and that's what we do. So KBL, it was just like, I just showed up there. Also, it was similar like to Birmingham, I think, Birmingham Muay Thai, where I showed up second semester rather than first semester. For me, it was because in my first semester at KO, I was preoccupied with a bunch of other stuff. I joined KBL because I wanted to get fitter, because at first I put on a bunch of weight. But at the same time in Japan, I was pretty fit because we had our, like, Olympic gym from Team GB, what they apparently trained at when they came to Japan in 2012. 2012? When they came to Japan for the Tokyo Olympics, Team GB trained at KO. So they left their gym there and I was training there for a while. Also, obviously, it's Japan, so you're doing steps because everywhere you have to walk. So I was getting my cardio up just being in Japan, and I was getting my strength up from the Team GB gym that we had. But I just wanted to do a sport because I just felt like a slub, and I was like, I'm not in a sport, I'm not in a group. I've always been in societies and groups at university. In Japan, I was not for the first semester. I was like, I don't care, like, I'm gonna join a group, I can speak Japanese, so I can go wherever I want to go. So I joined KO Badminton Lovers, and I had a lot of fun. I will probably do a separate video on joining Japanese sports clubs as a foreigner. But at KVL, I had a lot of fun. I wouldn't say it was an issue, but it was more what I was not prepared for was the intense social obligations that come with being in the group. So it's not like written, obviously, but you can tell they would go away for trips and things like that. And like the trips would cost like £400. I'm like, £400? Better, I'm a student, I'm broke. I know like these Kanemochi fucking Keola can friggin' get their parents, but I'm there working a part-time job. I'm there, like, my scholarship money kept coming late. Like, you know, I earned scholarships to go out to Japan, and they were coming late, and I was also working a job that was not paying nothing, but this is Japanese wages. So how are these Japanese kids earning Japanese wages, affording to go on these trips and stuff? And like these Keola, they were in limos, they were on yachts, they was going on like countryside trips for multiple days. I was like, I want to do this, but I'm broke. I know I'm foreign, but I'm a working class gal. I can't afford this, bro. I was like, I want to go so badly. But the one time I actually could have gone, I had a timetable clash. And the guys were all like, no! And the joke is, they said, like, not, because normally I spoke in Japanese. But when I said I could not go, their English come out fluently. They were like, no! Don't go! We need diversity! And that cracked me up. Like, those guys were so funny. Like, I had a blast at KBL, but I was just not on the same because I was old and foreign, I wasn't on the same wavelength. I think if I joined at 18 and I could actually speak to people and understand what they're saying 100%, and I was on it to, like, go on these trips and integrate with the people there and all of them things, I could have done that. You know what I mean? 18-year-old would have loved this. And to be fair, I think since coming to Warwick has been more like what I experienced at KO socially compared to Birmingham. University of Birmingham, nobody goes on trips anywhere. We don't go on trips. The one trip I went on is the one that I organised and pushed for and got funding for, and we went to Liverpool. We went to the Slavery Museum during Black History Month because I knew a guy who knew a guy and got the funding for it, so we went. We don't go nowhere in the University of Birmingham. These work lot though, they're on it, and that was my comparison from England to Japan, was that club culture is more intense. But since coming to Warwick, I think that it depends on the university that you go to in England. Birmingham was very social, but it wasn't very, like, integrated. Like, KO did that as well, where we had more socials with other universities and people were actually on it. But as somebody who was at University of Birmingham and would try to organise these things, the other universities were lazy as shit. Like, they didn't want to do anything. And it made organising these things difficult. But I think these top 10 unis are on it. They've probably got the money to be on it, but they're on it. Like, there's so many trips just in this month that have been here. More than I've seen. Like, right now, the current Muay Thai lot, they're in Leeds. They're going to Leeds for a couple of days. I couldn't do it because I don't have a reading week when they do. But they're all off to Leeds, enjoying themselves. It's wild, and KO was a bit similar to that, but I think that's because they are Kanemochi uni students, and the Warwick lot are also Kanemochi uni students. So they get very into their clubs and things like that. I also have noticed that they are very... So, the next point I want to make is that club culture not just necessarily being in the club and integrating with people, but the sports is huge. I think it's bigger at Warwick than it was at Birmingham, but it's not quite Japan. Let me tell you, when the baseball was on, you could not sleep in the dorms because them brothers was practicing from 4 o'clock in the morning. They were right by my room. My room was right by the sports clubs. But luckily, I didn't mind because my home life is also very loud. So I could sleep through it. But generally speaking, when I wake up, all I hear is Motakere, Motakere, la 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 la, Motakere, la 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 la. And I'd hear that for like 2 hours. As I'm waking up at like 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock, I'm there brushing my teeth, getting ready to go out and do the day. It's very early, but the whole time all I hear is Motakere, Motakere, la 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 la, what the hell? Like, I can hum probably all of their little chants what they used to do because I used to hear them in my room, which was right next to the sports store. But it was huge. Like, so KO and Waseda have this big rivalry and they have their like baseball tournaments. Me and my very bad immune system got sick and I didn't go. The one time I should have gone. I wish I persisted and went. But, like, it lives on. Like, even after you graduate from KO. Like, I was walking with, like, at the time, one of my friends was German. And he was singing one of the chants in the streets. And there's this guy who went to KO and he's there all like, "Hey!" And he's just joining in. Like, I'm like, and they say Japanese people are shy. Stop the cap. Japanese people on the street are the same as British people. They'll be all in your business if they recognise your business. So, like, they were big on the baseball and the rugby. Like, the other sports they also would show up for, but baseball was huge. And then when I went to Japan, it was the rise of Ohtani Shohei. Ohtani with his fine self, he was, like, everywhere. So everybody was on this baseball craze. Baseball is big in Japan anyway, but like Ohtani was like, even me, I'm from England, we do cricket in England. But I saw Ohtani's face and I said, oh, I'm into baseball now. I want to see what on. So Ohtani was everywhere. And then rugby. I mean, me personally, I like rugby, so I didn't mind like integrating with the rugby lot and seeing their games, but their games were also huge. And the thing is, baseball was so big that we got days off classes because the baseball matches were on and they wanted us to watch it. So the lecturers would message us like, oh, you know, the games are on today, so we're not having classes. And I'm like, they would never do this in England. They would never do this in England. Imagine taking days off because the sports are playing. Like, what? Oh, like, I was like, this is wild. We get like a reading week because the baseball is on, like. But also, so speaking about club culture, one of the other things I want to bring in is that it was a bit segregated. I mean, obviously it was segregated, but like it actually was from the university segregated. So I know one of my friends wanted to join the KO cheerleading squad and she was explicitly told that because she's not Japanese, she can't be a part of it. She was mixed. She was half Japanese. She was getting about on her passport there. They were still like, no, because you're classed as an international student, you can't be on the cheerleading squad. And like, I tried to join clubs that were advertised to foreigners. But even I had some reluctance. But my reluctance was not from the university not officially letting foreigners in. It was from the people there being weird. You know, it was like, they would just be like, oh, a foreigner is coming, and then you show up there. Or even before you show up there, it's just like, how much Japanese you know? And I'm like, well, I'm messaging you, aren't I? So what more do you want? Like, you see the kanji there? I'm communicating with you, so, I mean, I'm not fluent. I'm not pretending to be fluent, but, like, We're having a conversation, so, and then they'd be a bit weird about it, but they'd be like, oh, come along, and then you go there, and then it's like, so I was saying this to at the time, it was one of my friends at the time, Canadian Chinese, and he was saying to me, like, oh, it's a bit weird that they asked you for your identification and they asked you all these security questions just to go to the club, because they never asked me that. And I was like, And then the same brother that was there giving me like the 21 questions just to come into like the group, he sent me this big, so basically he tells me to sit somewhere and wait. And I sit there and wait, and I'm thinking he's going to introduce me to the club or whatever. And a bunch of other people come up to talk to me in the meantime. So there's one guy who studied in like England. There's one girl who's just talking to me because she's a chatty person. We're there having a talk in Japanese mostly, but the one guy who lived in England, he'd switched to English or Japanese. And I just respond to him in whatever way he was addressing me, And it was about 2 hours, and I was like, I don't know how long they want me to be here for, but like, I'm enjoying talking to these people. I'm enjoying seeing how the club is run. I don't know whether he just wanted me to just watch, and that's what I was invited here to do. But like, nobody's explained the club rules to me, like what's expected of me. I have plans, so I left, and then I get this big. Before the big long. So first, I get this message that it's like, can you understand Japanese on your own? And I'm like, yeah, I understood Japanese when you were first messaging me. I understood when I first went to the club. Why do you think I don't understand? What's the issue? And then he sends me this big, long-ass paragraph, basically saying, I thought it was so bad that you were this and you were that, and I felt that the other members thought the same way. I don't know how it is in your country, but in Japan, we would never accept. The brother told me to sit there. I sat there. That was the only interaction we had. He was mad because at certain intervals I looked at my phone. Apparently, I'm not supposed to look at my phone. He was mad because he thought other members were uncomfortable that I was there. You told this random black girl to sit there next to your friggin' training, didn't introduce me or nothing, so people are coming up to me like, oh, why are you here? And I'm like, oh, I want to join. They probably think I'm a scout or something. I'm just chilling, brother. I just want to play badminton. They were so weird about, like, I say they, it was this one guy who was like in charge of the socials. And he was gatekeeping because I'm a foreigner, and he just wanted to be weird. He was like, everybody feels uncomfortable because of how you were acting when you were there. Brother, I sat there like you told me to. I spoke to other members the whole time. You never spoke to me again from the minute you went, oh, come in, sit there. That was the only interaction we had. And then from speaking to the other members, they told me what the rules were and whatever. And I'm just thinking, like, maybe he just thought I wanted to watch. I don't understand. Like, I'm not going to sit here for more than 2 hours and I'm not training. But he was going at me like I knew the rules already. He was just like, in Japan, we don't do this. In Japan, we don't. And I'm like, brother, every club has their rules. It's not a countrywide fucking rules for every single... Like, every club has their rules, right? I will obey the rules if you tell me the rules. You had not informed me of the rules. The rules were not explained to me at any point. I had not joined the club yet, so I was not obliged to follow the rules. You told me, sit there and I will address you later. You never addressed me. I sat there politely and spoke to other members in the club who approached me and asked me about me sitting there. That was clearly an isolation tactic. You wanted to make me look weird by sitting there politely. I noticed that. I grew up in England with people who also don't look like me. You think I'm dumb? So basically, that type of culture is also present in Japan, where somebody will try to exclude you because you are a foreigner. So that was the KO badminton. That was the KO badminton official group. I joined KBL, which is the circle, which is a little different from the official club. I had fun at KBL, but I will have another video about discrimination in Japan. I'll have another video about that, so I won't go on a side rant. The other thing I wanted to say is that I think in Japan, people celebrate education more, because in England I find there's such a big crab in a barrel mentality. There is such a big crabs in a barrel mentality when it comes to higher education and things like that in England. I'm not saying it's not the case in Japan, but I did not feel that while I was there. It was like I was always celebrated for going to the university that I was going to, for studying law, and then the minute that I'd say that, people are buying me drinks. People are paying for my tabs when I'm out. Like, so many times I go out on my own, meet random Japanese people, and somebody will just be like, "You're so cool, I'm going to pay for all your drinks." And I'm like, "God, I ain't going to go." Like, you celebrate education. That's a good thing. But in England, I feel more like I'm punished for having education. Like, you know, you go on a date with a guy and they're like, "Oh, why are you at university for? I just did apprenticeship, I've just started working." And I'm like, good for you. Why are you talking down on what I have done so far? You know, because the thing is, like, an apprenticeship, right, is university. It's university level. It's your level 6, but you're working to get that instead of studying. It's essentially the same thing, but when you talk down on somebody for having gone to university, like, it's just hater mentality, and I don't like that in England. I don't like that it's so prevalent. In Japan, as soon as I say, "Oh, I'm at Keio," they're like, "Hey, Keio Daigaku. Ah, sugoi, sugoi. Atsubaga-ii." And I'm like, ain't that smart? It's a year abroad. I don't know what Japanese people have to do to get into Keio. Because I'm like, okay, it's like one of the top 5 universities or whatever, but like, most people get in just because they got money so they can pay the way in. I'm like, if most people are like Kanemachi, they're paying the way in, what does it take for somebody who's not Kanemachi to get into Keio? Like, I don't understand. But the vibe is that if you're smart, you get into Keio. So everybody's all like, oh, and then I say I do law, hogaku. People hear ongaku, which is music. And I'm like, no, hogaku, I do law. And they're like, oh, sugoi. People, like, because people see the way that I look, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you was, like, famous, I thought you was a singer or some shit," and I'm just like, no, I'm just normal, and like, "Oh my gosh, you're so pretty, why are you in Japan?" And I'm like, "I'm studying." They're like, you live here, "Oh gosh, you live here, what you do?" And I'm at Keio. They're like, "Keio!" Like, mind blown. That's the thing about, like, Japanese people, reactions to education. You'd never get that in England. Like, in England, maybe if I studied at, like, Oxbridge, if I go to Oxford, people would be like, "You're at Oxford?" And you can see, like, the calculation just working in their head. They're thinking, how can I take her down a peg? You know, she shouldn't be at Oxford. You know, it's like, you can see it. And, yeah. Another video. I'm rambling. So another thing also that I've noticed with university students over in Japan is with the international community. So I found that international students, you know, I mean, I've said it a few times, but I'll say it again. Like, I find that a lot of foreigners who go to Japan, their MO is just to be like, "I know everything about Japan. I speak so much Japanese. Japanese people love me. Look how well I can integrate into Japanese society." But, you know, reality hits them. But I found that a lot of those people that talk like that also didn't go into like the Japanese clubs. Like, one of my Japanese RAs, she said to me, like, you are the only, like, foreigner I know who has made an effort to go into a Japanese only club and speak their Japanese, and it's really rare. And I was just like, I didn't even think of it. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think of it. I mean, I think as an individual, I'm somebody who's had to go into spaces where I'm the only person. Like, whether that's race, culture, class, whatever, like, blah, 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 only woman, only working class person, whatever. I've had to do that on repeat throughout the whole of my life. So walking into a room where I'm the only non-Japanese person who's also in my 20s, yeah, I tend to do these things without thinking about it until I get there. But I don't regret it, and I did make friends there. I mean, I noticed there was one Korean guy who was also... So I was 24 at the time, he was 23. And we had like a heart-to-heart about being like foreigners who were also in their 20s. You know, like, I feel a bit too old for this, but like, this is the campus society. Like, Japan is a bit more linear than abroad, it seems. Like, most people tend to join at 18 or, like, I mean, they have that, like, run-in thing where, like, if you're, like, a run-in, like, you didn't get into uni when you were meant to, and then you get into uni the following year, but despite that, it seemed like everybody joined at 18. I joined uni at 20. I also had to experience COVID. I got there later than most people. So it was like a bit difficult age-wise because it's like, I'm older than everybody. And he was like basically the same age as me, also a foreigner. So we had our little bonding about being old foreigners. But everybody else, like all 300 people in there, were pretty much Japanese. There was like maybe one like person from East Asia who had been in Japan for many years, but generally speaking, it was just us two as the gaijins, like, and then the other gaijins who I moved to KO with would not even the ones, like, there were ones who would just brag about how much Japanese they spoke and blah blah. They never went to the Japanese only speaking clubs, and I didn't realise that until one of our RAs said that to me, and I was like, I didn't even think of it like that, like, but thinking about it, like, I joined one of the biggest Japanese, like, circles, and obviously it was on our campus. I joined, like, a very historically prevalent circle without realising. I just joined it because I like badminton. But I joined that, and it's like hundreds of people have also joined that. There were only, like, less than 5 foreigners in the whole group, and I only met, like, 3. No, I met 2. The other one I met was from basketball. He wasn't even from the badminton group. I'm like, damn. When I deep it, it's a bit wild. Like, foreigners don't integrate. I get that the uni was kind of making efforts to not make us integrate, but I still integrate without meaning to. It's just like, I speak Japanese. I'm gonna join, and if I get there and can't interact with people, then fair enough. But I went there and I made friends, and I struggled. It was tough, but I had fun and I met people, and I did have a lot of fun as well, like, throughout the struggles, because if I never joined, it would be like, what was the point in learning Japanese? Why do you want to learn textbook Japanese and not use it? And it's like, I can imagine, it gave me a lot of empathy. I mean, I had empathy anyway, but first person empathy. Like, when international students come to England, and we're kind of looking at them and they're like, they're kind of on their own, they're not really integrating. Like, I've always been somebody who wanted to speak to people who didn't seem like they were integrating more. But in this case, I could kind of see why. Because, okay, they speak English enough to understand textbook English. You know, when the lectures are happening in English, they can understand things. But they don't know cadence, they don't know culture, they don't know, like, slang. They don't know, like, the vibe. And that was what was stumping me the most when I was in Japan. It was like, I know what they're saying generally, but like I felt, especially when I was around some more prejudiced company, they would purposely try to use slang or whatever to exclude me from like a conversation or something. And I knew basic Japanese slang somehow, but tone and things like that I can't always pick up on because I only know textbook Japanese. Like, luckily I'm not a dense person, but you know, things like that you need to live in the country to understand. And that's the case for anywhere. Like, even when I was vibing with Americans out in Japan, and like I'm teasing them all the time, and they don't understand British teasing. So I have to be gentle. Like, some of the New Yorkers get it. Like, the New Yorkers understand them. They're more on our level with them things, but generally speaking, it's not an American thing. So I have to understand sometimes that a lot of our banter that we have in the UK, Americans take a different way, even though we speak the same language. And it's like that in Japan of, oh yeah, I learnt Japanese, but how does it matter culturally? Like, how does it matter in context? You don't know that until you're there. So I found like it was very difficult, and I can understand like to an extent, but a lot of these foreigners that were so like insistent on putting other foreigners down, they weren't putting in effort like that. You know, they'd be like, oh, I have a Japanese girlfriend. Okay, cool. How's your language skills coming on? Like, they'd be trying to like level with me, and I'm just like, oh, this is some white guy who come to Japan, he only speaks Japanese as another language. My mate from friggin' Germany, he speaks German, French, Italian, English, and Japanese. You only speak 2 languages. Like, you don't faze me. Like, they're always coming thinking they're special. Like, and they don't integrate though. And they have the means to integrate. I can get why people would be put off from integrating. Like I said, from my mini rants about official clubs and the way that I was treated when I tried to join them. But if you're gonna be on a pedestal, you need to back your talk. And many foreigners don't want to integrate, which I found interesting. Like, many people go to Japan and they don't speak Japanese, so they can't join the clubs. Fair enough. You won't hear a complaint. Like, if you don't speak the language, you can't pretend to know the language. But if you can speak the language and you're bragging about being able to speak the language in front of people who can't, why are you then bragging about being in English speaking only clubs and you have not been into Japanese speaking clubs with Japanese students? I did not realise that until the RA pointed this out to me, and she was just like, you know, you always integrate and people don't integrate even though they speak Japanese. And I was like, you know, she made a point. But that's one thing, like in England, international students try to integrate a lot of the time. I find a lot of them struggle there. You know, I think when I think back to like my first year of like my undergrad, when we had like Chinese students or whatever around, and people are like, oh, where did they go? They're not here or whatever. And I'm like, I could just imagine it being really difficult for them to pick up on the banter, to pick up on the mood, to understand the specific terms that we use. And then I think we try to be welcoming, but it doesn't always make them feel welcome. And it's not a fault thing, I think. Like, you could put that effort in, but if the connection isn't there because they don't have the understanding. And it was like that for me too. Even though people were lovely, and I see those people in a positive light who were lovely when I was struggling in those spaces. It's not the same as people who I just click with, like I could click with somebody in England, do you know what I mean? And the language barrier kind of makes that more difficult. So I understand why people would be put off, but if you don't even try, why are you going to talk down to other people? That is one thing. There's quite a few foreigners in Japan who think they're better than they are as people in Japanese level in integration, in life generally, and they will talk down to people about how well they fit into Japan. But as anybody who's an ethnic minority in the Western world, we look at them and we just think, ha. This is my final point, which is probably my biggest and most important point, but generally speaking, So, Birmingham had the best campus compared to KO. Funny. And KO had several equally good campuses. Right? So, I was on paper Mita campus, but I lived in Hiyoshi. So, I mean, Hiyoshi campus was right there. Like, it's like a 15-minute walk from where I stayed. Mita was an hour and a half walking and on the train to commute every day. That's the main hub in Tokyo, right next to Tokyo Tower. So it's very scenic, and you see everybody walking on the little crossing by Tokyo Tower. And I'm like, that's my uni, that's my uni. Like, you know, it's very famous. But that wasn't my. I mean, it was on paper, but I mostly went to Hiyoshi campus. Then there was also Yagami campus, which was next to Hiyoshi, but I'm telling you, Yagami campus was so... Like, I went to Yagami campus once because I wanted to join their Aikido club, so I went to the Aikido club for a bit. Lord of mercy. Let me tell you, it took literally the power of 8 gods to get into Yagami campus, Carl. It's like Yagami campus starts here, and then you have to walk for like another 10 minutes just to get to one of the entrance. Like, you'd be so tired, and it's all uphill. Like, Yagami campus was hard, and then, like, there wasn't no other train station that was easier. Like, you had to go to Hiyoshi train station, and it was like a 30-minute walk to where the border of Yagami campus was. And then the entrance, you couldn't find the entrance. You just be walking around looking for the entrance. It was terrible. But Yagami campus is only for like some of the STEM guys. Like, everybody, like, the reputation is that if you study at Hiyoshi, you're smart. I don't know why, but apparently Hiyoshi is for the smart people. Mita is the main one. Then you have SFC, which is somewhere. It's like Seinen something. I can't remember what it stands for. But SFC is a little further somewhere in a different part of Tokyo, and like, Apparently, everyone tells me, everyone tells me this. I'm not saying it because I don't know, and I have classes in SFC, so at me. But they're saying that SFC lot are not as smart as the rest of the KO lot. It's not me. I didn't say this. This is just the reputation that people told me. So, yeah, they were the main campuses. Birmingham really is only the one in Edgbaston. Then you have a small tiny one in Selyoka. I don't even know what they study there. Then you have like the one all the way in friggin' Dubai, which is like an international campus. Like, you don't really have campuses spotted around with Birmingham. And like, basically, Birmingham's campus was so good because you had the utilities. You know, you had the stuff on campus. KO was like, you only had the like one little university shop, which is where you can get like your hoodies and your KO merch. You had like a little food hall with, you know, where you could get your coffee or whatever. That was pretty much it. And then campus closed at 9, which was this, like, why is campus closing at 9? Like, Birmingham and Warwick are both 24-hour. I'm like, this is one of the top universities in the country, and you're kicking us out of campus at 9 o'clock. Like, and they don't even have, like, a big library. Like, it was just, everything was just like, no. Like, there's no benefit, really, to coming to campus. Like, I went to the campus all the time because I had to keep up my attendance. And I actually did enjoy it when I got into the hang of things. Like, 2-hour journey. I didn't mind it. Like, I got into campus. But, generally speaking, KO campus was a bit of a struggle. Because you didn't have amenities that kept you on campus. Like, Birmingham has a 24-hour library. Warwick has a 24-hour library. Warwick especially has, like, different restaurants and clubs and bars. KO didn't have any of that. Like, if you wanted to get food, if you wanted to, like, drink or whatever, you had to go off campus. So I guess they were missing out on making money. But then I would say Japanese people can't hold the liquor. Like, if they were selling... Warwick is selling strong zeros. If they sold strong zeros on a Japanese campus, all hell would break loose. Like, they sold out the strong zeros at Warwick so quick. Like, I have a photo of there just being nothing left, like EOB or nothing left, and they were only there for like a week. It's so bad. Like, strong zeros in Japan are full size, full strength. Students love drinking them. If they sold them on campus, people would complain. The parents would complain. So I'm not even gonna hold that against them for not selling alcohol on campus. But open up the libraries, man. I want to study. I want a study space. That's what I'm paying my money for. But yeah, I would say those are the main differences that I found between KO and University of Birmingham, but those are based on my limited experiences of studying for only 1 year at KO and also thugging it out at UOB during COVID, which extended my time there for about 4 years. So 4 years at University of Birmingham, 1 singular year at KO University. I hope these tips were useful. If anybody wants more about any particular side of university life, I'm happy to give it. I understand that I was focused more on the social aspects, but I think they were what mattered the most to me while I was there. Mainly due to the fact that I was only on a year abroad, and also I felt that even in Japan, what mattered most was the social aspect of university life, who you networked with, who you integrated with, who your friends were, compared to anything else. And also it didn't seem to be focused on the other things much. But yeah, I think that is all I have to say about the differences between England and Japan academically. So thank you for watching. I will post some more videos soon because I do have more plans for more videos. And yeah, good night.